thank you everyone for joining and welcome to Pathway CTM's apprenticeship webinar exclusive to the Skinners Company. I'm now going to hand you over to Tony from the Skinners Company. Tony.
Thank you, Catherine. So good evening, everybody. I'm not going to spend very long at all by way of introduction, but I thought it would be worth just emphasising that this is an event sponsored by the Skinners Company exclusively for our schools and put on by Pathway CTM, with whom we've had a relationship really for the last 5 years or so, on and off with some of our schools. And this evening really marks the start of a much partnership where we'll be working, where Pathway will be working with all of our schools to help young people to access really high quality apprenticeships. And so this evening, the purpose of this evening is to find out a little bit more about how Pathway works, how they work with schools, how they work with receiving employers, and help to bridge that gap. It's a very competitive field to get into apprenticeship places, so we're going to learn a little bit more about that. In terms of attendees this evening, I'm delighted we've got governors, leaders, teachers, parents, students from all of our schools. And so thank you very much for taking the time to be with us this evening. We're also very grateful that we've got recruitment leads for the apprenticeship programs for HSBC, UBS, Deloitte and the Co-op. And they've kind of given up their time this evening to talk to us, along with some current apprentices, so that we can find out directly from them what the experience has been like. Pathway are going to explain a little bit more about how the evening will proceed, how you can all raise questions as the evening goes on, as the webinar goes on, and how those questions will be picked up and answered. So I'm not going to say any more, except just to welcome everybody again and to pass back over to Catherine, who will explain how this will work. Okay, thank you.
That's great, and thanks, Tony. So for those of you who might be new to Zoom, who knows, I'm going to just quickly talk through how you all can communicate throughout the session this evening. So we have our chat box, and that is there for any comments throughout the night, but please do direct your questions to the Q&A box, which you will see along your panel. So Chris and I will be going through the questions, and hopefully, we will be answering all of them for you this evening. If you did want to speak to us directly, you can raise your hand, and then we will have the power to unmute yourself so you can ask us a question directly.
Fantastic. And so welcome from me, everyone. I'm Chris McNamara, founder and CEO of Pathway CTM. I was saying earlier before 6 o'clock, really excited to have this session in order because I myself grew up in Kent, went to the Haysbrook School and surrounded by different schools from the Skinners Company. I've been into every single one of your schools, even down in Folkestone, up to London, through Kent. And now I'm delighted to say that we'll be working with all of you on a really close level because of what Tony's managed to do to help us do even more stuff in your schools, which is great. But yeah, today is going to be exciting. I'll be leading on the panel and asking different questions. And like I say, I'm really excited that we've got some massive brands here for you to be able to speak to, ask questions to, and find out, what on earth they offer, because it's some amazing opportunities there for young people. So it's my job to try and bring that out this afternoon, this evening.
And yeah, so good evening, everyone. I am Catherine, and I sit on the education team at Pathway CTM. So it's my job to liaise with schools and colleges all across the UK that we work with, and to ensure that teachers, parents, students are aware of all the great opportunities that are out there for school leavers. So of course, you'll find out more about those apprenticeship routes later on this evening. So thank you all. I'm just going to quickly relaunch the poll, as I know more of you are logging in, which is great. So I'm just going to pop that up for you there.
Okay, good. So let's get cracking. So you can see here Deloitte, the Co-op, UBS and HSBC, who we've got here to speak today. I'm going to start off just by asking you guys to introduce yourself. So introduce yourself, the job role that you have at the company, and indeed what opportunities you have available for young people. But we'll have plenty of time to speak. So if I start off with Karen from Deloitte, please. Karen, welcome.
Hi everybody, really nice to meet you. So I'm Karen Luckley-Tang. I work at Deloitte, which is one of the largest global professional services firm. My job title is Deputy Head of Student Recruitment, and I've been at Deloitte for just over 4 years, but I have over 20 years experience in student recruitment, mostly student employers in the UK. We have around 2,500 vacancies every year for age groups 16 and above. So we're a really large employer, and I'd love to talk to you more about those vacancies a bit later on.
Fantastic. Thank you, Karen. So deputy head there. So we've got someone who really knows about the systems and organisational process at Deloitte and ultimately why they do apprenticeships, interns and graduate schemes. Danny from the co-op, over to you.
Hi and good evening, everyone. Thanks for having me. I'm Danny Matthews. I work for the co-op, which most of you, I'm sure, would know as the convenience retailer, largest cooperative in the world. About 4.5 million members, but we've got, more than just food retailers, funeral care, legal services, and I'm joined by Russell today from our legal services business, as well as lots of depots and around about 70,000 colleagues, of which around about 1,000 of those are apprentices or students across our organisation, and I lead on all of our apprenticeship recruitment and community recruitment as well.
Brilliant. Thank you, Danny. And again, great to have you here tonight. And then we'll move over to Hannah from UBS. Hannah, are you with us tonight?
Hi everyone. My name's Hannah Wild. I work at UBS. We are a Swiss investment bank, and I work in the junior talent team. So I'm responsible for recruitment and program management across our apprenticeship programs, interns and graduate positions. So cover the whole spectrum of different roles. We have lots of positions available year on year in the hundreds, from front office to back office. So a range of different apprenticeship, intern and graduate. So happy to be here and take any questions later on.
Fantastic. Thanks, Hannah. Great for you to be here. And over to Joe at HSBC.
Hi, good evening, everybody. Hope you're all safe and well. I'm Joe Reynolds. I'm the Early Careers Operational Lead at HSBC. And as you know us, we are a very large global bank, but we're not just a bank. We have got every route you could possibly think of, as you would expect in a large company. But we actively recruit work experience students for those still in full-time education, apprenticeships, degree apprenticeships, industrial placements, internships and graduates. But we also do a vast amount of work providing support and education to young people, especially during these unprecedented, uncertain times.
Thanks, Joe. And Joe, I'm coming back to you straight away, if that's okay. Just to layman's terms, an apprenticeship, I just want to hear it from the experts, just in case people want to be updated. What is an apprenticeship, and I suppose why do companies do them?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I started as an apprentice myself 26 years ago and have been working in this field ever since. So an apprenticeship in layman's term is gaining a recognised qualification, valuable work experience in paid employment, in a nutshell. Why we do it? It very much complements our graduate programmes, and we will always run the two together. But it brings in and it gives opportunity to young people who perhaps haven't got the opportunity to go to university, or university isn't for them. So it brings in a different demographic of very committed quality candidates who are just really determined and committed to learn, to gain that experience and hungry to develop their careers.
That's amazing. Joe, how many apprenticeships have you done over your time?
I'm on my 9th.
Wow, that's amazing. And Danny, coming to you at the co-op. So Joe's progressed through the levels and she's done lots of different qualifications there. So you can join at the bottom, so to speak, a level 2, I think it is, and you can grow all the way up. Could you just talk us through that path and how that works?
Yeah, there's, if I'm memory serves me correct, at the moment there's 5 different levels of apprenticeships, ranging from level 2, and to compare that to kind of normal money, should we say, that's the GCSE level. And that goes obviously from through 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, all the way up to postgraduate qualification level at level 7, and everything that sits in between. It's supposed to mirror that against your kind of traditional academic routes. Level 2 is GCSE, 3 is your kind of A levels, further education, 4 is that kind of HND, somewhere in the middle between college and uni. Always a difficult one to articulate. And then your 5 and your 6 and your 7 are kind of those high level and degree apprenticeships as such.
Brilliant, thank you, Danny. And I'll bring in Hannah now, because Hannah, you guys have recently brought in the degree level apprentice at UBS. Could you just tell us a little bit more about that and how that works at the degree level, which is often what parents seem to be asking about quite a lot?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm super excited that we did as well, because I think it's such a fantastic opportunity for students to have the option. So we soon realised, and I think back a couple of years ago, I remember in one of my previous companies, we were talking to some people on the markets floor about having apprentices in the front office, and they were shocked that you would have 18-year-olds on the floor. And I think that was kind of the consensus at UBS as well. And we've just seen how fantastically they do. And they're super smart, they're super bright, they're not work shy at all. And they really want the opportunity to have that additional learning alongside their work and to get that qualification. They have nothing against them. That means they won't be just as good as grads in a couple of years. So it's been super exciting. So yeah, the first intake of degree level apprentices started in September, and some of our existing cohort are switching onto that qualification.
And Hannah, what sort of universities are linked with these programs? Are some of the good ones, or?
Oh, 100%. So we're working with University of Exeter, and just to sort of put into perspective, we have target lists of universities that we would look at for our interns and graduates, and that would definitely be on that list. So it's a really good institution that you're getting your qualification from.
So you can do an apprenticeship route and still get linked to the University of Exeter, but surely it's different to what people do if they go to Exeter as a uni student?
Yeah, and obviously the experience is going to be completely different, and you have to work out what's right for you. But if it's a case of you want to start working and full-time study just isn't your cup of tea, this still allows you to sort of hit the ground running, work, but also put some time into your study as well. There's no right or wrong answer, it's what's right for you. But certainly this just gives people that other option, which wasn't there before.
That's amazing.
Danny, sorry, if I can add something to that. Actually,
Yeah,
with my previous employer's hat on, so I worked in investment banking for about 15 years. I only joined Deloitte 4 years ago, and it's been amazing to see the transformation, because 4 years ago, investment banks were not considering apprentices at all. And now the landscape's changed so much, and now they're an absolute critical part of the employment force. But in 4 years, it's amazing to see all these programs coming from investment bank and others and law firms as well. But I think it's demonstrating how important apprentices are to all employers now. It's the elite it's for everybody, and I don't like to use the word elite, but it's changed so much in 4 years. And I think that's something I want to share with the group. Is you might have an impression of what an apprenticeship is, but it's really changed so much, just even in, as I said, a short space of time. And hearing that investment banks are now doing these sort of programs is, I think, is phenomenal.
And Karen, we'll come back to you in a second. Thanks so much. But Joe, you're nodding there. Did you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, no, absolutely. As I say, I've worked in this space a long time, and apprenticeships unfortunately didn't have the greatest reputation back even 15, 20 years ago, but that's very much changed now, with the introduction of the higher and the degree and the master's levels as well. Primarily before that, we were looking at trade, so bricklaying, hairdressing, but you can now do an apprenticeship in virtually everything. They're being introduced into medicine, into law, and that was when it really gave me hope for the future of apprenticeships, is when law companies started taking on degree apprentices and foundation level apprenticeships, who have very traditionally not just taken on graduates, but the Russell Group graduates as well. So it really is the way forward. All employers are very much looking to take on apprentices in the future. And we've had a cohort now for 18 months, one of which is on the call tonight. And our degree level apprentices are already performing to the level of a graduate or higher. They are really, really just shining and bringing so much to the company, as well as obviously them getting valuable work experience and that degree at the end of it as well.
No, thanks, Joan. Just to come back to Karen there. So Karen, for the skeptic maybe, surely I've still got to go to university because I'll get paid more throughout my life, and I'm going to have more doors open to me throughout my career. What would you say to that?
I mean, I would completely disagree. I mean, Deloitte have been taking on apprentices since 2010. We take on about 350 a year. So a large proportion of our junior talent is apprentices. The great thing about it is that you get a professional qualification. So you have no university debt. You get a professional qualification, which is the same as what graduates will get. You also are part of a cohort, so you become a group, you get some of the experiences, you get training programs, you get the buddies, you really get the same experience as a graduate without the debt, to be frank. And our apprentices are so valuable to our organization. I mean, everybody's fighting when we hire our apprentices, everybody's fighting about who's going to get them because they know how talented they are. And quite often we hear that actually the business don't realize who's a graduate and who's an apprentice. They don't realize there's actually a difference. So credit to the apprentices, they're really standing strong against their peers. But this is a big investment on our part. We're in our 11th year of apprentices. Hiring 350 every year is a big group, and everybody knows our group. We call our apprentices bright starts. That's how we see them: bright, new ideas, diverse. We're really passionate about them, and it's definitely not a quick or what's the right thing to do. We've been doing this for a long time, and we are invested, and that's continuing. So we will continue with our graduate programs, but we will see the balance shift from being more heavily to graduates. It's going to come to a point, and sooner rather than later, where they're equally as important. So we are committed, and I know my colleagues on the call here today are as well. When talking to lots of other employers, apprenticeships are here to stay.
Brilliant, thank you, Karen. And Danny, just picking up off that then, so I suppose if it's just as important to Deloitte, UBS, HSBC, the co-op, surely then in education it should also be just as important. What do you see from young people? Are they sort of applying for universities and apprenticeships? What advice would you have to young people, I suppose, given your position?
I suppose in terms of what we see from young people, and also to that point, I suppose from a teachers and a careers perspective as well, is there has definitely been a shift in attitude in the past couple of years towards apprenticeships. I think there's still a long way to go from a careers education point of view, and a kind of a wholesale understanding as to what is an apprenticeship, why would I choose that route versus university, versus just going and getting a job after college or school, or even changing direction in your career at whatever age that might be. I think we've definitely seen, probably in the last 12 to 18 months, a real shift though in the amount of particularly individuals choosing the apprenticeship route instead of just kind of being solely focused on going to university after college. And I think that's that's a good shift, a good shift for us to be making. But as I mentioned, I think there's still a long way to go, and they're definitely here to stay, and some fantastic apprenticeship opportunities out there for everyone, regardless of whether you want to be a lawyer, an embalmer in a funeral home, a lorry driver, a solicitor, an accountant, whatever that might be. There's probably more opportunities in apprenticeships than arguably there are vocational degrees out there in the academic world. So yeah, I think there's been some fantastic progress. Still a long way to go, as I mentioned, but definitely changing. And
Danny, just briefly, you can be a lawyer at the co-op through an apprenticeship scheme, is that right?
Yeah, that's right. So we actually offer about 25 different apprenticeships across our business, and particularly the solicitor apprenticeship 5-year program. I think to your point, Chris, around you can earn more money going to university. I actually did. I'm sad like this. I did some maths. It worked out that if you went to university to study a law degree, trained to get your qualification, and then became a lawyer, versus going down the apprenticeship route, you were actually 92,000 better off going down the apprenticeship route than you were going to university from a student debt and a salary and an earning perspective as well. So yeah, you can be a solicitor through or a lawyer through our own apprenticeships at the co-op, and we'll be recruiting some of those this year.
Fantastic. The apprentices on the call are rubbing their hands together, making the right decisions potentially for them.
It's not £92,000 lump sum. Let's get that clear.
Hannah, just coming to you, because we just got a question here around Exeter saying that if you do an apprenticeship with Exeter University, does the qualifications make clear that it was an apprenticeship, or they awarded the same certificate? Could you just give us a bit of an insight in terms of, if I go and sit in the same hall as someone in Exeter, I actually get the same qualification at the end of it, for example? Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's this degree level qualification. I must admit, I don't know what it actually says on the certificate itself. I've not seen one. But yeah, absolutely. And I mean, anecdotally, we had someone the other day, and I figure in the investment banking industry, like Karen was saying, it's new that we're taking people on. I had an application for one of my graduate programs in front office, and they had just finished a degree level apprenticeship, and the CV just stood out so much more to me. They've done 4 years work experience, and they've got their degree from, I can't remember the university, and they've come through to assessment centre. They've obviously looked to move slightly more front office. So yeah, and from our point of view, exactly the same.
And that's so funny. I'll let anyone pick up this one because, you know, the ISE research says that actually from the apprentices in the market, 25% of them do come from graduate schemes, from graduates. So if I've gone to get my 2-1 at Loughborough, which I did, I loved it because of the sport, actually I might be applying for an apprenticeship. And that's the way the market really is changing. I'm not sure if anyone wants to pick up on that because I think it's a key point, isn't it?
Yeah. I guess for us, we don't, we reserve our apprenticeships for people who are choosing it instead of university, but I don't know about the other employers on the line.
So, same for Deloitte.
I must admit, we leave ours completely open, and we did have applicants who had degrees and also master's levels who were just struggling to find that graduate job, because there's over 200,000 graduates who graduate each year and only really a small percentage of positions. So they did apply. I have to say, out of the cohort we took on, one had a degree, the others didn't. They were straight out of school and finishing A-levels.
Even though they're in the same pool?
Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing, isn't it? Catherine, coming to you, because I think you've got a question after Danny's point. Danny.
So, yeah, just want to add on that, actually. We're quite, I suppose we look at apprenticeships from both sides of, I suppose, across all ages. So, yeah, we absolutely target school leavers and college leavers, but I think our youngest apprentice is 16 and a half and our oldest is 75,
Wow.
working in our funeral care business. So we see it as absolutely that early talent piece. But I'm sure Russell will come on to it in a second. He's a career changer apprentice.
Not the 75-year-old one.
But I think we to Joe's point, we leave it open. It is interesting to see how many graduates are applying for apprenticeships, though, for certain.
Yeah, absolutely. And do put any questions you have for this panel. We'll be able to ask them later as well. But any immediate questions, do pop them in the Q&A box. Catherine, have you got any for us so far?
Yeah, I do, I think, and it would be good to hear from all of the employers. So the question is, what would be the minimum level of pass grades that would be required at GCSE level in order to get considered for an apprenticeship? So let's come to Karen at Deloitte first, please.
I'm just checking my notes, actually. We've got different criteria, but our criteria is grade 4 or C in English language and at least a grade 6 B in maths for your GCSEs.
Great, thanks, Karen. And Danny at the Co-op.
Depends on the apprenticeship you're applying for, to be honest. Our lower level ones, we don't ask for qualifications or grades. Higher level, potentially some GCSEs and A levels.
That's great. So for the person that asked, as Danny said, it is specific to the role, so make sure you do check that requirement. And Hannah at UBS.
Sorry, I keep on forgetting to take myself off mute. So for the majority of our programs, it's BBC or equivalent in your A levels, and I think it's just group technology. We have AAB. It's a little bit higher for technology, just because it's a slightly different degree level qualification. So we'd just echo checking the application screen when you're looking.
That's great. And Joe at HSBC.
Yeah, again, it would depend on the level and the actual qualification, but the level 3 apprenticeships equivalent to A levels is grade 4 at maths and English, and then raising to our degree apprenticeships are 112 UCAS points, so typically BBC at A level.
Fantastic.
Can I just ask a supplementary question here? Can I just sort of ask about what is it in addition to those qualifications? Because sort of BBC or ABB or whatever, they are the kind of traditional grades you might need to go to study at university. So what is it that on top of that, the employers are looking for from young people? And how is it that Pathway help to prepare young people to acquire that little bit extra? Because we all know that this is far from an easy route to a degree. It's actually fiercely competitive. And so there must be something a little bit more that you're looking for.
Yeah, who wants to kick us off? Joe, you're nodding there. What are you?
Yeah, I don't mind taking that. I must, but we have a completely blind process. So as long as you tick at the beginning, you've got those A levels or equivalent, that you come through the process. We don't know anything about you. We don't know what subjects you've taken, what school you went to, anything about you at all. For our degrees, we actually run assessment centres, which are actually quite different to a lot of other assessment centres, and I'm sure Nick will say that when he comes on to speak, that they're quite intimate, and what we're looking for is, I like to say, the X factor, to coin a phrase. We are looking for people to bring their true authentic selves, their passion and commitment, and no matter what that passion and commitment is, you know, it may be that somebody is, you know, played tennis to a high level or can play grade 7 piano, but equally it might be that, you know, they care for their parents because their parents are ill, or they look after their younger siblings, or whatever it may be. It's bringing their true authentic selves and those skills that they've learned to navigate the world to this point, is what we're looking for, which is why I think the graduates didn't get through the assessment process when we were recruiting degree apprentices. It was those people who were just bringing their true authentic selves and speaking from the heart, and that showed that passion and commitment. We can teach them everything else. We need them to be them and to be passionate and live our values.
No, it's great. And Danny, coming to you in a second, but just you could also open up around your assessment and selection, because I think it does tie in quite nicely. But Danny from the Co-op.
I think the key thing for us, when particularly looking at apprentices and grads to a point, is potential. So potential to do the role, and it's always a difficult thing to kind of put your finger on in a selection process. But for me, it's around kind of attitudes towards learning, commitment to develop and grow and push themselves that little extra mile. I think specifically around Co-op, I think, you know, we're looking for those cooperative values. So that kind of working together, supporting each other, caring for each other. I think, you know, I'd probably speak on behalf of all employees. Every employee will have different cultures and values and behaviours that they might be looking for. So my biggest tip on that would be making sure that doing your research around what the company stands for and what they might be looking for is the key thing. And then the only thing I would call out is there's a couple of practical elements. So for argument's sake, if you want to be a lorry driver apprentice, believe it or not, you need to be able to drive a car before you can become a lorry driver apprentice. So things like that. But they're probably a bit more obvious regarding to the roles.
No, thank you, Danny. And Karen, coming to you at Deloitte, I just wonder, you know, what should I be preparing my young person if they're coming through the doors at Deloitte? What do they need to be practicing?
Good question. I think just to add maybe on this point Joe made, we also do blind recruitment. So we ask for certain grades, but we don't ask to see where you've come from, what school, what university. That's the case. We also don't ask for a CV, and I think that's a really important point I want to make here, because we're very much about leveling the playing field, and we really recognise that actually quite often work experience in corporates go to certain type of candidates. They're not open to everybody. So actually we don't have a CV. So actually what you've done or haven't done, that's not part of the initial selection process. In terms of preparing yourself, I mean, you have to do an online assessment. So that can be daunting if you haven't done that before. Most employers will do them now. But certainly, you know, you want to go on beforehand, find out what you're being assessed, how long it is, how long you've got to do it. I guess know what to expect. I think that's when you haven't done it before, that can be intimidating. Although we're a really big employer, we recruit quickly. So the selection process, the application process is quickly. So, you know, make sure that you have enough time, make sure that you see this as a professional environment. So when you're doing you'll have a live interview like this, make sure that you have got, you know, suitable background, make sure you've got a shirt and tie that is suitable, find out what the employer's dress code is. I guess it's prepare as much as you can. And when you come into the face-to-face, you will be meeting likely to be a partner or director. Again, that can be intimidating, but check them out on LinkedIn, find out who they are, what their background is. So you've got something about them that you can build a rapport when you meet them. But I suppose, you know, myself and all the other employees, we want you to succeed. We want the students to succeed. This is not a test. We want to bring the best out of you. So we're not going to make it scary. We're going to make it a realistic environment, but it's about bringing the best out of you. So find out if there's any alumni from your school who are working at Deloitte, try and connect, ask for is any buddies you might be able to speak to, try and reach out. You will get a coaching call from someone in my team beforehand, one-on-one, to help you prepare for the assessment as well, so have questions ready. But I suppose my advice is just prepare yourself as much as possible.
Thank you, Karen. And Hannah, coming to you then, in terms of the skills and strengths that UBS look for, and I believe you guys do video interviews. I think that might be quite good to touch on as well.
Yeah, I mean, I would echo what everyone said here. We accept online applications, so not CVs as well. We're looking for people that have passion, have determination, are just really enthusiastic. You just can't teach enthusiasm, especially sometimes not to graduates like you get from some of the apprentices, and we can teach all the technical skills. I mean, we're working in quite a highly numerical environment, so we do have some online assessments, maths-based. We have video interviews. So the video interview would be kind of as you are probably now on a laptop or a mobile device, and you will have some questions that flash up on the screen, and you'll typically have about 30 seconds to review, and then you'll have 2 minutes to give your answer. And it's just a chance for us to like hear a little bit from you without that intimidating person on the other line, or asking follow-up questions. Just a couple of questions for you to pre-record sort of at your own convenience and submit to us, which we all review before any assessment centre. I would probably echo the advice of checking the dress code, dressing smart, having a clear background, no mobile phones on whilst you're preparing, and do your research on the company as well. So work out what they're looking for. Like Danny said, everyone's got their own cultures and values. Ours would be integrity, collaboration, challenge, and try and bring those into your answers. But our assessors are always looking for people that can show that little bit extra drive. So, you know, part-time job, it doesn't need to be anything finance related. It could be, you know, caring for someone. It could be working in a coffee shop, in the garden centre. It could be anything. You know, you could have a really interesting hobby, just something that kind of makes you stand out a little bit. It doesn't need to be related in any way to our industry.
Thank you, Hannah. And I might come back to you actually immediately, but I just want to recap what we're hearing there. Attitude, showing your best self, and doing your research as well around the companies and preparing. But one thing we do at Pathway CTM to help Skinner's pupils is events. So we do events with all the brands that we work with, whether that be an online event, a physical event, although I've forgotten what they feel like, to be honest. But it's all about, at 6 o'clock, for example, turning up off your own back to know that you want to go and learn more about the co-op, HSBC, whatever that might be, learning about them, understanding their values and what they do and their opportunities, deciding if an apprenticeship, an intern, a graduate role might be more what you're suited to in terms of your learning style and where you want to go in your life, and then making that decision. And then our team ultimately help then support young people throughout that journey and help them with their applications, which we'll come on to later. But I just want to know about getting your foot in the door. Hannah, if you do decide to go to uni, for example, should we be doing a summer school, spring school, all that type of thing to try and get in earlier?
Yeah, sure. And I mean, what you said about these events is completely right. And the fact that you guys are even on this call, finding out more about opportunities already puts you ahead of a lot of people your age or even older than you. And I hope it makes you realize that we're not all big scary organizations, like there's actually people that work in these departments and that are reviewing these CVs, and it hopefully doesn't seem so scary. But yeah, if you do decide to go to university, absolutely. I think unfortunately, it sort of used to be graduate programs and it keeps on getting earlier and earlier. But we run something called a spring program, which is for students in their first year. So typically you would apply as soon as you start university, and it would be for some organizations it's 2 weeks, some it's like ours a week, and it's an unpaid introduction program, sort of like an elongated version of what we've got today, and talking you through sort of the company, the different departments, and hopefully what it will do is give you a little bit of an idea about what it is you want to do. And I think getting your foot in early with those spring programs can help you fast track onto summer programs and then graduate programs. So it's really key for you to sort of look at what's available to you when you just start university. You'll have career services, you'll have employers bombarding your universities with opportunities and marketing events. So keep an eye out. But yeah, spring programs are super key if you go to university.
Brilliant. And Joe, just similar question, but also, do you have more chance of getting into HSBC as an apprentice application or as a graduate application? Because surely still more going to university, right?
Yeah, there are more going to university still. It's still about 70% go to university, but there are less and less graduate positions. And this isn't just with HSBC, but across the country, we are seeing a downward trend in graduate opportunities and more apprenticeship opportunities. So at the moment, it's probably slightly easier to get an apprenticeship, but I think in time it may become more competitive. And I just wanted to give some advice, really, that some young people don't have, a supportive school. They don't have parents who have got those connections to get them work experience. They may not have the opportunity to have a part-time job. So it's attending events like this that can really raise your profile, and you can learn a lot from it, as well as, work experience that we do. So look out for any opportunity to join something like this. We're running a suite of workshops on soft skills and employability skills. Great thing to add to your CV that's not costing you anything bar a couple of hours of your time. And also a great way to link with people is on LinkedIn, which is social media for professionals. As long as the young person is over the age of 16, they can reach out to somebody in investment banking or a lawyer to cheekily ask for sort of a little bit of their time to help guide and potentially become a mentor. So really try and grasp all these opportunities that you can.
Brilliant. And I'm running out of time for this panel. We'll move on shortly. But Danny, just briefly, you've done lots of sessions with us. You supported us over COVID-19 when we came up with a curriculum for students. What does it mean to you as an employer when you see the fact that they've been to one of your events in their own time?
I think it shows an investment and an interest in not just our brand and our programs, but also in terms of thinking about their next step and their career, and that can only be a good sign. Just one point I just really want to mention, I just really want to bust this myth that people think it's really competitive to get into apprenticeships, and it absolutely is. But it's also really competitive to get into graduate programs. So I wouldn't ever try and look at, it's harder to get into apprenticeships, because realistically, if you choose not to go down that route and you go to university where it's essentially relatively easy to get into uni to a point, you're only going to have to apply for a job at the end of university where it's as competitive, if not more competitive than apprenticeship. So I would never try and compare how competitive it is versus graduates.
Well, I can just add to that, actually. I can give you some numbers if that's useful. I mean, we have about 350 apprenticeship vacancies, and we get about 5,000 to 6,000 applications for them. For our students, our graduates, we have about 1,000 vacancies and we have about 50,000 applications. So actually the odds are more in favour of apprentices. I think there's still not enough awareness about apprenticeships, so people miss out on that. But actually it's not easy to get into apprenticeship, but the odds are a bit more in your favour because less people are aware of them yet. But we are working hard to change that.
But for young people out there, and when you go back and teach them, etc., tomorrow, it's if you want to go and work at Deloitte, have a go at the apprenticeship, because you've got potentially a better chance, as we heard there, of getting in. If you fail, you go to uni potentially and have another go at the graduate scheme in the summer school.
Last point, sorry, if you want to apply to Deloitte, though, 19th of February is our deadline, though. So,
Karen, just really briefly, if I'm in year 12 and I want to get ahead of the game, there are work experience programs, aren't there, Karen?
That's right.
And you have one at Deloitte as well, don't you?
We do. We have a 3-day work experience called Career Shapers. We run them throughout the year during half term and summer holidays. We're now open for the summer vacation program. So 3 days unpaid work experience, similar to the spring events that we do at graduates level. But it's a really great way to get to know us. And they're virtual this year, actually. So the great thing is it doesn't matter where you're based. You can join any career shaper. It doesn't matter your location, actually. So that's a really important point to make.
HSBC, Joe, as well, isn't that right? So you've got good opportunities there. I must move it on if that's okay.
Chris, just as you move it on, can I just ask, we've just heard there a deadline for applications 19th of February. Now, everybody at school understands UCAS deadlines because they're virtually the same every year. It's a well-trodden path. With windows of applications opening and closing all the time for different organisations, it's much harder for schools to track, students to track exactly when they ought to be applying. Could you either answer now or say, when you talk a little bit about Pathway's work, how it is that you help schools to track all these opening and closing windows of applications?
Yeah, and I'll take this one. It's almost the hardest bit, really, but you just got to be on top of it. So, you know, my advice is always start looking up in year 11 and year 12, having a think about where you want to go. And then in year 13, it's application time, right from the beginning of September. Sometimes these brands are opening, you know, and some brands like Dyson, they'll close within 4 to 5 weeks of opening in September. So you've missed that opportunity if you haven't applied within the month. And it really is that important. So lots of different brands open later. They might close a bit later. It's just about keeping an eye on it. And that's what we do at Pathway. We've got a portal to help with all application openings and when they close, and giving nudges to young people who said they're interested to make sure they don't miss out. And that's including these amazing work experience schemes, which I think is the most important bit ever. You know, get your foot in the door, try it, test it, decide, you know, if you like the company. And then second to that is, I like it. Now, do I do an apprenticeship route or a graduate route? What am I thinking? And we'll hear from the apprentices soon about what they chose. So I think time to move it on. Catherine, over to you. I know I'm behind schedule. I'm in the bad books.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I just want to, so I launched the poll again, and we've had 91% answer the poll, so I'm going to end it now. And just to recap who we have watching this evening. So 31% are parents and guardians, 15% are teachers, and then we have 20% are governors and 34% are students. So it's good to see a few students have come on, which is great. So well done, guys. And just a quick question. Thanks to everyone for putting your questions in. This is really great, but one question has been answered, and I just want to reiterate, you can apply for both university and apprenticeships. So while we're speaking about apprenticeships, as Chris mentioned, now we're going to be moving on to our apprentice panel. So over to you, Chris.
Brilliant, thanks. And it's over to Rez. So Rez from Deloitte, your name, I suppose I've done that part, your role at Deloitte, and what it is that role you actually do. What does it mean in layman's terms?
Hi, my name is Rez. I'm currently a cybersecurity consultant within Deloitte. I've been with Deloitte, so I'm on my third year of my apprenticeship, and my role generally varies because it goes from project to project. So sometimes I'm working on PowerPoint, sometimes I'll go to client sites, sometimes it's really different. No 2 days are really the same for me, to be honest. And I joined Deloitte in 2018. Prior to that, I had no cybersecurity experience, and I haven't looked back since.
Amazing. And Rez, I'll stick with you just for a little bit because it's really good to get to know you a little bit better. So why did you choose an apprenticeship?
So the reason why, I think in the back of my mind, I've always wanted to do an apprenticeship. Like I've never really wanted to go to university. And one thing that really changed my perspective on just go for an apprenticeship is when I was in sixth form, I started working, and I was working in retail. And one thing that I noticed is that a lot of people that I was working with, they've had degrees, but they were struggling to get their foot into the chosen industries. So in contrast, I was like, an apprenticeship is an opportunity to not only to get my foot in the door, but also gain some experience, gain some knowledge, and also get paid while doing so. I know everyone's heard this before, but that's one of the main reasons why I chose the apprenticeship. I didn't want to get stuck into retail or get into a career that I didn't want to with a degree, whereas an apprenticeship gave me that opportunity to do so.
Brilliant. And Rez, did you apply for university, or you knew it wasn't for you?
I genuinely knew it wasn't for me, so I personally didn't apply for university.
Brilliant. Thanks, Rez. Great introduction, and good to have you here. Nick from HSBC, your role there, what it does, to kick us off, please, Nick.
Hi guys, yeah, so I'm Nick, I work for HSBC. I'm a client support specialist, working in different businesses, sort of in obviously the financial background. I've been sort of with the bank now on the degree apprenticeship scheme for sort of just over a year. So my role's kind of changed from working with smaller businesses to businesses with like much larger turnover and a range of different sort of products and finances, really.
Brilliant, Nick. And I wonder, Nick, working at a bank, did you do maths at A-level?
No. Originally I did, but I realised that it wasn't something that I wanted to do sort of at an A-level thing. So I ended up sort of changing my courses over a little bit and doing some more business-related ones. So still kind of keeping the maths and the finance accounting in there, but not sort of specifically into maths.
No, it's amazing. Was it 86%, I think, of employers don't mind about what you're studying? It's about really following your passions and doing well in that subject that you are going for. So Nick, what about you? Did you apply for uni as well? Were you tempted?
Yeah, so I mean, the degree was always important for me. I felt like I wanted to go and get a degree, so I applied to do law at UCL, and I had offers from university. And it was only sort of going through, I attended a careers event at HSBC, which talked about the opportunity of degree apprenticeships, but I hadn't really heard about before, the opportunity to sort of work, but also still get that formal qualification. And it was once I'd done that, I'd introduced myself to someone within the bank. I had a conversation who sort of informed me that I could basically do both while I learn and apply everything I was going to learn from my degree. And then it was sort of then I started doing my research into it and realised that you could do both.
Fantastic. And do you regret your decision, or do you think it's the right one, Nick?
No, I think it's fantastic. I mean, I wouldn't change it at all. I think the opportunity to be in a younger age and to start building that professional network and getting that experience and seeing directly how the things I'm learning in my degree can be applied straight over in the role and in the real life world, I think it gives you that broader depth of learning than just doing things from textbook.
No, but I think it's always so admirable going against the curve. So many young people go to uni, but I always find that those that choose the apprenticeship route, I'm just staggered at what they've achieved already in like 2 years of their careers. It's definitely those for the proactive, I think. Mitchell, what about yourself over at UBS before we come to Russell? What was your journey? Were you tempted to and thinking about university as well?
Yeah, so I work in the wealth management business at UBS. I'm still in my first year, so I joined in September. So I joined at home, which was a weird experience, but definitely still don't regret doing the apprenticeship. I did apply for university as well. I had my heart set on Uni of Edinburgh. I was originally going to go up there and do politics, but obviously that didn't happen because I'm at UBS, and I don't regret it at all.
No, brilliant. And tell us a little bit more about the responsibilities you have in your role then. So what sort of stuff do you get up to? And working from home as well, how have you handled that, Mitchell? Well done to you.
So wealth management is all about managing high net worth clients and their money, making sure that you achieve their targets in life, essentially. What I do day to day is support the client advisors. So client advisors manage the clients, and I sort of do security checks. I'll do a lot of admin work if that needs to be done. And then the main thing I do is annual client reviews. So producing statements, things like that, things related to that. Sorry, what was the next bit of your question? I've forgotten.
Sorry for giving you a double there. Just like, how have you coped? So you've only just joined, and how have you coped with doing this all online?
It was difficult, but I will say that UBS did it really well. They sort of put you into breakout rooms, so you're always talking to other people. And obviously, when you have your Exeter degree as well, so I study on a Wednesday, so I don't actually work on Wednesday, I study there. That's all virtual as well, but because you're on a call, you can interact with other apprentices and things like that. I was lucky enough to go to the office once, which was nice, very, very empty, and all not the same because everyone was wearing masks and socially distant, etc. But it was still a nice experience. I suppose working from home, you have to get yourself into a routine. I try and get out once a day for a walk or a run. Otherwise, you can just drive yourself insane sitting at home all day. But I still love my job, and I've learned a lot. So yeah, it's a great opportunity.
Great. And Russell, coming to you, looking forward to coming to you, Russell. Could you tell us about your story? Because it's evidence that you don't have to make your mind up straight away from the age of 18 or 16, I suppose.
My parents would say I could never make my mind up. So I don't know how unusual my route is really. I suppose it might be. I'm significantly older than the other three guys that you just had there. The last job I was doing prior to starting the apprenticeship was I was a secondary school teacher. And it was sort of, I knew it wasn't the job I wanted long term. So I started sort of hunting around for these types of programs. And it was kind of catalyzed by the lockdown, to be honest. I was sent home and thought, okay, I want to transition and try a different career. And the co-op, was a very, very appealing. So I I guess I've done both routes. I went through university to the nth degree, and now I'm trying to come back to start again as an apprentice.
And Russell, just talk us through the role that you're in at the moment and where you want to get to maybe in years to come, if that's okay to ask.
Yeah, of course. So it's, I'm obviously at the co-op. I'm part of the non-contentious probate team, which is dealing with, it's a very specific area of law. So it's a 2-year apprenticeship. If I explained the job, it would sound quite morbid, but the law behind, the law behind it is really quite interesting. But I mean, it's been touched upon with some of the other people and the panelists at the start. Really, why I was keen was that it was a 2-year program that was very, very structured. I did ask a lot of questions about the progression post-qualification. The fact that the job was secure, provided you passed the qualification in the apprenticeship, was a big, because I was taking a risk with a career change. So I needed to know that it had a pathway beyond this initial 2 years. So that was a huge appeal. And part of the answer to that was really the pathways are varied, and lots of my colleagues went through a kind of manager route, but there is also potentially the longer term option for me to end up as a practicing solicitor if you keep pursuing the qualifications. And the last thing I guess I would add is that in terms of the risk, it was very possible, I think, in theory, for me to get the same qualification through various Silex would be the legal provider, and it could have been possible for me to pay my own way and get that qualification. But I was in on the ground floor at a company, and my thinking was they're investing in me for 2 years as well. So there is a kind of it's in their best interest for you to progress. So it's kind of a two-way thing. I don't know if the solicitor route is where I'll go, but certainly the fact that there are options is very appealing.
And Russell, you can go all the way through the levels and you don't pay a penny, or do you have to sort of front up some of the cash for the qualification?
Certainly, I mean, I'm not entirely sure about how it would work at the very higher end, but certainly it's been pitched as a potential for me, and I'm assuming, I think I'm in the co-op, at least in the legal services, I think this is one of the pioneering programs, but I think they've run graduate ones before, but certainly that was a big part of the early discussion, was that there are advancements to the qualifications should you wish to go that way. But you can't hold me to that, whether what the costs are, I'm not sure.
And Tony,
can I just ask a question? I'm just getting myself into the mindset of some of the students from our schools who will be watching this, and so this is a question to the apprentices. It all sounds like quite hard work. You're doing a job and you're learning, and it does sound like it's a pretty sort of tough route for fairly sort of hard-nosed sort of individuals who are just ready to knuckle down and really work hard. Has that been your experience, or do you have another view?
Let's come to Rez. And Rez, I just wonder, what's the differences between your route and maybe those who are 3 years into uni, some of your mates?
So firstly, I would say, just to answer Tony's question, is sorry, my mind's gone black quickly. So the main difference from compared to my friends, so my friends are all obviously they have a debt, and then they have to go to uni 5 days a week. I know some of them do, and they have to work a part-time job on the side. Whereas for me, before going into the apprenticeship, I had a view of like, I would probably have to work 9 to 5, and then once a week I would have to go to college or something like that. But in contrast, upon starting my apprenticeship, what I realized is actually I have so much freedom and so much although I have a lot of responsibility, I'm given so much freedom at the same time. So I'm given the responsibility to manage my own task and my project work along with the studying, and I once a month I basically go offsite before the pandemic, go offsite and do some studying, and say I'm finding it too hard or I need more time. Is a general case of escalating it and speaking to someone. I'm given a buddy, I'm given a coach, I'm given and also my project managers. Generally just like private message them or even speak to them on the side, and they generally say, how's work, how's everything, are you all right, do you need some more time? And all I have to say is, yeah, I'm finding it too hard, can I get some time? And they'll just give it to me. It's not a case of, you know, I'm forced to prioritize project work and I can't balance my apprenticeship work.
No, okay. And Nick, what about yourself at HSBC? Is it cut out for a certain type of person? To Tony's point, is it going to be quite hard to juggle everything you've got to do?
Yeah, so I'd say it can seem quite daunting at first, and sort of the adjustment period at the very beginning, you know, it does seem quite like it can seem overwhelming at the very start. But what I would say is it's hard, but it's balanced, and especially at HSBC, it's very supported. So obviously you have your degree qualification, where mine's from is a London Institute of Banking and Finance, and then obviously we have our everyday role. HSBC, we have Thursdays as our designated study day for the degree apprenticeship specifically, which allows time to do our qualification. And then on top of all of that, we have our individual apprenticeship providers, which give us the extra bits and the support that we need. So with things like time management, decision making and problem solving, we have all these little extra modules and support from managers and talent coaches, which help us make sure that we stay on track and that our own well-being is also looked after. So it can seem at first, when you start getting into the swing of things, it can seem quite difficult because you balance a degree and a full-time job. But then actually, once you get into the rhythm of things and you've got your own routine, you've got, you know, when you do work, you know, when you do university work, and then you've got sort of that support from your talent coach and your managers coming over the top with all the extra bits you need. I think that's what really sort of allows it to be much smoother. And it actually feels like it's a lot of work, but it doesn't feel highly pressured at times because you know what you're doing each step of the way. So I'd say that kind of is where I sort of stand with it.
And Tony, you know, the HR experts on this call, they spend all their time with the program managers looking after these young people, making sure that the work-life balance is in tune. It's remarkable, you know, the amount of support that they do get. But maybe just to flip that question, Mitchell, coming to you, what about the fun stuff? I know you're just getting going in your career, but you know, the University of Edinburgh, do you still get to do the fun stuff? Did you have a freshers week, I suppose potentially online, but just talk us through maybe what you're expecting.
Yeah, just a quick thing. It was Exeter that we study with. I actually applied for Edinburgh before, but it's Exeter we study with. Unfortunately, because of the pandemic, I've been unable to do everything, so it's all virtual. But there was a residential trip planned, and there is like there's a few visits a year that you can go down to Exeter. I mean, I've received my sort of card in the post, so you do feel like a student as well as studying. But those are the best bits. You go up to the office, you're socialising with people. You can go out for lunch, you go out for drinks after work. I certainly think one of the big things for me when thinking about apprenticeship or uni was social life. Am I ready to go into work? And now that I'm here, absolutely. And the social life, even though I am virtual at the moment, you can tell it's going to be a good one. You're meeting with people all day. You're in London. You're in the hub of the country. So that is what I would say about the fun side of things.
No, well done, Mitchell. I'm sorry, I did recognise when I asked the question that you've just been in lockdown and COVID ruining my session here. I do, Catherine, we've got a few questions that are coming in. I think some of them are quite similar. So over to you, please.
Yeah, thanks. It'll be good to hear from you guys in terms of just really to reiterate that, you know, the degree apprenticeship is exactly the same as if you were to go to university. So let's and also really, you know, how does your week work in terms of studying towards that degree? So let's come to, I'm going to go to Nick at HSBC. So, okay, what does your week look like? How does it work? You know, how do you fit in? Yes.
And just to come in, obviously some are on degrees and some aren't on degrees, and it all depends on the type of level that they are doing. But yeah, that study question. Sorry, Kathleen, just to...
Yeah, no, sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. So Nick, in terms of your studying towards that qualification, how does that work into your week?
Yeah, so at first I thought maybe I'd have to do bits and pieces outside, but I say for my scheme specifically, we're given Thursdays, which are our study day. So at the start of each module, we would normally, that would be in the university, we'd have 2 workshops, so 2 full-day workshops at the university with a lecturer, which would outline basically all of the module briefly what we do. And then on Thursdays, we each get released material each week, which we then self-study also with webinars on the Thursday. So my week, I suppose, looks as Monday to Wednesday, I'm working, I'm doing my full-time job, and sort of I'm learning things about my role specifically. Same with the Friday, but then Thursday specifically is left entirely for my degree work and my qualification work, and I found that sort of that balance is quite good. Obviously, I read over my notes and bits and pieces throughout the week, but I would say that the Thursday, the intensive day, and the way that the course material is laid out for us is a good balance for me.
Great, thanks. Would anyone else like to pick up in terms of how they manage with the studying? I'm going to open this out to you all.
I'm happy to sort of touch on how I do it. So similar to Nick, on Wednesday is for us, we have a study day. At the start of each module, we'll have a masterclass which lasts all day, and from then on, you'll release material each week and you do it as it comes through. I think in terms of managing it, it's you're given that day, and usually the workload is all right to complete most things throughout that day. I think for me, when I come to the end of a module, you do find you might have to do a bit of work on the weekend, or you might have to do a bit of work after you finish work in the evening. But generally, the apprenticeship is molded to work around that working week, and therefore they don't set you too much work, so you're finding yourself overloaded. And as touched on previously, if you're ever finding yourself working too much, you can always contact various people, whether that be with the university or your employer. But generally, apprenticeships are molded so that they work around your time in the week.
Good stuff. And I think we've got to move it on to just open up to the floor now for questions, really. But Tony, just from your point of view, have we convinced you that apprenticeships are a good route so far?
Well, I certainly think they're a viable option, aren't they? I think for some young people, they will want to go away and have the degree experience at a university, and that will be the right route for them. But I think for others who are clearly, as evidenced here this evening, there are lots of young people who want to get stuck into the world of work and learn some skills, some work-based skills alongside studying. So I don't think we can say it's one or the other. I think it's just depends on exactly what it is you're looking for as a young person. I would like us to know a little bit, and this is probably coming up, but I would like to know a little bit about what it is that Pathway does, because a lot of people listening in now will now see that you are an organisation working with apprentices, but in terms of providing that bridge between schools and those companies seeking to fill apprenticeship places, I think it would be useful to know a little bit about that, and also how you will be working with our schools and what our schools can expect from you.
No, excellent. Kathleen, let's jump onto that slide, and then please do, everybody, put in any questions that you have in the Q&A box, and then we'll do a quick fire round to make sure that we get back our HR professionals into the mix. So, Kathleen, the Pathway CTM program, obviously we're working with all the Skinners, academies and schools this year. What can they expect, and what are we going to do to help them?
Yeah, of course. So the most important thing is that if your students aren't already signed up to our program, it's for them, year 11, year 12 and year 13 students, to sign up to our free program where they can hear all about employer opportunities. So there have been a few questions this evening asking, how will I find out about apprenticeship roles opening and closing? And that's where Pathway CTM can help support students with knowing when things are opening so that they can apply. So as I mentioned, employer opportunities, we have our employer events, which I will tell you at the end of the session what events we have coming up next week and even this week that your students can get involved with. And of course, when they sign up, when they complete that online survey where they indicate what sectors they're interested in, they can then have a look on our online portal, download our templates, CV templates, and lots of resources which they can have a look at. So from a student's point of view, it's for them to sign up. And then teachers, of course, as Tony mentioned, the virtual sessions which the Skinners group are funding, you can book those sessions for your students, which we will deliver virtually like this, but we'll also have an employer from our network. So they'll be hearing from real life people, whether that's an apprentice or someone from the HR side, sharing their tips and advice for your students. And of course, more importantly, for those year 11s, for those year 13s, 13s who are looking at applying for apprenticeships this year, we can help them. And I'll share our email addresses. A few students have asked, you know, they need support, which is great. That's what we're here for, so we can support you through that application process.
Yeah, and just to echo quickly what Kathleen said there, I've been doing this for 6 years, and I think the bit that I love the most is when you meet a young person in year 11, it might be year 12, and they start getting their foot in the door to come to some events, to meet different employers. They realise where their interests lie a little bit, and actually realising, oh, I didn't realise I could do that well within that company, and I'd actually you know, didn't think I could do that because I'm not studying a STEM subject, for example. And then it's a case of going through to work experience programmes in the summer that many organisations run through us and nationally as well. And then actually, you know, narrowing down gradually as they get to year 13, maybe applying for uni as well and having that as a backup at least, and narrowing down their choices for apprenticeships. And then my team kick into gear to make sure that we can support them, because, you know, not everyone has a mum, a dad, a teacher, or a brother or sister who's in the know all the time and is always there for them. So that's kind of where we step in to make sure that we are that brother or sister who is there all the time. Really from 3 till 6 p.m. is when we make most of our phone calls and support those students and just help guide them through that application process, because sometimes it can be a little bit daunting. Just want to open up to the apprentices here. I wonder how many apprenticeships you guys actually applied to, because I know on average at Pathway it's about 5. They would apply for maybe 5 apprenticeships and hopefully get one of them, but I've heard stories of 20, 30 plus. Are there any stories amongst us from our guys?
I applied for 20 apprenticeships, so I was pretty keen on it. Yeah.
And talk us through that process, Mitchell. Did you get accepted to a few, or was it just the one?
So the only one that I got to the final stage was UBS, and all the others I did a bit earlier, and perhaps wasn't as sure on the apprenticeship scheme. I was more focused on uni, so wasn't giving it perhaps enough time. But I think apprenticeships are very different. They're all individual applications. University, it's 1 for 5 universities. So you do have to be prepared to spend that extra bit of time tracking them and knowing which ones you're applying for. And I think the more you do, the more comfortable you become with the application process, and you know what to expect. So I was quite surprised when I looked back and I realised I applied for 20. I did think it was quite a lot. But yeah, that was my process.
It's good to know you know your numbers in the role that you're in now, Mitchell. So that's interesting. Anyone else with any examples? Maybe just one and you nailed it.
Yeah. So can I?
Yeah, go on.
Okay. So one thing different about me is I applied to, I think maybe 4 or 5, but the reason why I chose Deloitte over the other places that I applied to was just because of I felt like how Deloitte treated me as an individual. So throughout the application process, I was constantly being given updates on where my application process currently is, and also I was given feedback. So sometimes I got feedback and I thought, oh, maybe I didn't make it, but it was genuine feedback on, oh, hey, here's how this stage went. Here's some feedback. Here's what you can improve on. And then I was surprised that I actually made on to the next stage, and I continued to do so. And throughout the whole process, I felt like I belonged to Deloitte even prior to joining Deloitte. Like I was given a buddy, and my buddy actually called before I joined, before I even got the offer, and he generally gave me an insight on what life at Deloitte is. Cracked a bit of banter too, so that's why I choose Deloitte over alternative places, just purely because of how I was treated.
Rez, what was the word that sums up how you felt when you got accepted to Deloitte?
I would say shocked. I was shocked. I didn't think I'd make it, to be honest. I was shocked.
That's a good story and well spoken. Nick, over to you. Did you have something to share?
My sort of approach was very different. I only really informed myself at the last minute. So I only applied. The only apprenticeship I applied for was HSBC, and it was towards the end of the sort of closing thing. Sort of I left it quite a while because I'd gone through UCAS. I'd applied to 5 different universities, all to do law. And my intention was 100%. I was going to take my top offer and go and study law and move. And then it was only afterwards I'd really spoken to someone who could tell me in depth about what degree apprenticeships and apprenticeships really were, and sort of debunk the myth of that compared to university. And my degree is a bachelor's in banking practice and management. It's the same as if I was going to university. but alongside getting that exact same qualification, I'm getting a base salary, I'm getting 4 years experience in the door, applying everything I'm learning every single day. So for me, it was only the one at the end, but it was the one that I knew was going to be the one, and it's sort of a good job that I got it.
No, excellent, Nick. There we are then. So we're looking forward to working with all schools moving forward. Kathleen, should we get back into the Q&A, or Tony, did you have something else to?
I was just going to ask that so clearly some people have applied for many apprenticeships and probably gained some experience by doing that, and then secured the role in the end. How is it, what sort of interventions do you do with the schools to help with some of those processes that we've heard about already? Things like the online assessments and the video interviews and the preparation for being, for meeting a partner and things like that, which are all sound quite intimidating when you're not used to that kind of scrutiny. How do you help the students prepare themselves for that?
And I'm going to bring in the panel here. Danny, I'll come to you in a second, but it's about bringing in our amazing employers. My knowledge would only be as far as my understanding of the market from afar if I didn't get in and work with these employers and understand what they're looking for. So I find a lot of a drive in my role comes from knowing what the co-op might be looking for and sharing that with young people and helping them through that. But Danny will tell you, we did a series of 8 webinars over the first lockdown, looking at CVs, how to apply for different roles, how to assess your strengths and know what you're good at before you go into the interview, how to nail the interview, and hearing it from other people supported by my team, I think is what it's all about, because these are the experts. Danny, in terms of your comments on those sort of sessions?
Yeah, I think we've probably been involved in quite a lot of different activities actually, Chris, since we've been working together. Obviously, the webinar series is just one way of doing that. I think it's a really great way of allowing employers to get in front of students and influencers as well. Parents, teachers, governors, whoever that might be. But definitely hearing it from the horse's mouth, for want of a better phrase, I think is where the real value is to students and potential apprentices or anyone making that decision as to kind of what their next step looks like for them.
Yeah, definitely. And again, with HSBC, we've done sort of interactive sessions where Jo and her team will be in different breakout rooms working on a particular task and actually giving their feedback and saying what they would. I think I was in a room with Jo in a breakout room, let's say with 10 students, in an event that's 100 students large when you go out into the main room. And Jo's actually giving her feedback in terms of what she thinks that people said and how they said it in terms of an assessment point of view. And like for me, someone who went to uni, didn't know about, summer schools, just missed the whole trick about graduate schemes. I think knowing that when you're in year 11, 12, 13, knowing what a head of HR, so to speak, head of programs is looking for is second to none. So get onto events if you're a student, because even you can just cross out the things that you don't like, Jo, anything to comment on that and why it's important for young people?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think especially for those young people who haven't got, parents to sit them down and do mock interviews, or teachers to help them, pen a CV or whatever it is to attend these events. We've done quite a lot with Chris physically and virtually to sort of talk through our selection processes and other employers' selection processes as well. And I think that's really, really important. And I think the more we can do, especially, assessment centres, video interviews that are very new, I think we need to get into schools and to the students. And even schools that do interview practice, they're very much competency-based interviews. And most companies don't actually use competency-based questions now, they use strength-based. So it's about, and that's what Pathway do so well, is connect employers to schools so we can guide the teachers and the careers advisors and the parents of how the world of work has changed and to help support the young people through the processes.
Yeah, so there we are, turning down to the relationships with employers really, and then sharing those relationships with the young people to make sure that we're all staying ahead of the curve. And I just think my message to teachers and parents is just understanding when things open, when things close, and what these employers are doing, because they've all got amazing opportunities. And just by turning up to an event at 6 p.m, we do them at 6 p.m. the majority of the time, because life is about attitude. And I started this business on 91% of employers pick you on your attitude. And from my school, people had to show that, I think, to show that they're better than those that might have amazing grades, but actually these people want to work hard and get on. And I think we've heard that this evening from these employers. They actually care about it, and that's probably good for me as a C grade, D grade student who works hard. That would be quite appropriate for me as a 16, 17-year-old.
Chris, sorry, can I just add something? Just in terms of these events, I mean, certainly, if I think about myself when I was back at, school, university, I was a very shy, very nervous person. And the thought of going to an event like this would have really terrified me, I think. But now that I've run these sessions many, many times, I want to share the message that it's okay to come and not know anything about the employer, not know what a virtual assessment center is, and not knowing what an interview looks like. That's absolutely fine. I mean, don't feel like you have to have any preconceived knowledge. These sessions are here to help you. And I personally shied away from them. And then, in hindsight, I'm kicking myself. But, you can learn so much from this, and just have an interest. Go along, talk to someone, ask them about their job. What are they doing? What can I learn? But it's okay not to know anything and go to these events. It's a really important message from me.
Yeah, thanks, Karen. And that's why it's good with the Skinner's Group teachers on the line, because we are coming into your schools virtually as well, because that student who's never going to turn up at a 6 p.m. slot on their own, even if it's behind their computer, behind, there's no screen, so to speak. But we just try and come into the schools as well. And we want to be working with your students who could really benefit from us coming in and giving that extra support.
So for any year 11 students out there, they've really got time to engage with you, Pathway, in their schools, but also take part in sessions similar to this, which are targeted on assessment centres or how to present yourself, and all of those softer skills that have been mentioned this evening that are really, really critical to success in securing an apprenticeship place. You could come every week or every 2 weeks or something to a Pathway event online like this to really build up a good knowledge of everything that's necessary.
Yeah, we've got two to three events every week minimum, sometimes about 6, which my team don't like me for. But yeah, I always say most people start off education thinking to go to uni. That's what we get drilled into us. But if you can actually turn up to these events with an open mind, what always happens, young people turn up thinking uni, they meet these guys, they meet the successes of the apprentices we've heard, and they go away thinking apprenticeship. It's just how it is, but it's not our decision for that. It's their decision. It's your decision as a young person. All we do is guide that journey. And if you want to go to uni, go to uni and crack on in 5 years' time. But at least you've met the brands earlier. You know that they do internship schemes. You know that 90% of people that go on their internship scheme get into their graduate scheme, and you start playing the numbers and you start winning your career. And that's what it's all about, really. Catherine, should we just bring it back to the Q&A? I feel like I'm getting too much airtime here, and just bringing back in our experts. So over to you, Catherine. Any questions?
Yeah, sure. And thanks again for all the questions. They're really great. So I'm going to say the question, and then from the panel side, employers, do feel free to chip in on this. So in terms of, when students finish an apprenticeship program, and then someone else would finish a graduate program, on completion of that, in regards to the next step in furthering their careers within that company, are there any factors which could influence whether people who have followed the apprenticeship route or perhaps the degree route might be more successful? So I don't know who wants to answer that in terms of, furthering your career. Do you favour anyone if they've come through the apprenticeship route or the graduate route? And I think, Joe, you would like to answer this one.
I've come off mute, you know me. It's hard to tell as yet because, as I say, we're only just over a year in for our degree apprentices. But my personal opinion would be that the degree apprentices would have been in the business for 4 years. They're rotating around the business, networking, gaining so much more experience than our graduates who were with us for 18 months. So to me, I think the degree apprentices might just nick it just on that experience, just on the more valued experience, and they will be more embedded into HSBCs and their culture and values. But it would come down to the individual, to be honest, not necessarily which route they took.
No, thanks, Joe. And I'll take over from here because we've only got about 8 to 10 minutes left because we want everyone to finish off and some key messages at the end. Hannah, I'll bring you back in from UBS if that's okay. Just one from Alexi saying, if the university path is 5 days a week, so studying 5 days a week, I think I was 1 day a week, but yeah, 5 days a week. The apprenticeship day maybe being 1 day of study a week at the university, for example. Just basically, what's the trade-off? What's the sacrifice in terms of depth of knowledge? What might you say to that, Hannah, in terms of setting up your apprentices? Is there any sacrifice, depth of knowledge? What would you say to that potentially?
I'd probably spin it on its head and say, what's, I suppose, the sacrifice for the people that aren't doing the apprenticeship? They're not getting 4 days of work experience a week. They're not building those connections within an organisation. Yes, I mean, okay, talk to me about my years at University of Manchester. I probably did 1 day of studying a week, realistically. I know I shouldn't say this on the line, but I think the trade-off, you can look at it both ways. I'm sure you'll go into some more theoretical details with your studying, but you'll be learning it practically on the job. So I think you have to look at it as theoretical and practical knowledge. So I guess that's the trade-off. What would you prefer?
No,
employers prefer practical.
And I love that. And why do we study? To get a career and get into a job.
Exactly.
So I like how you framed that, Hannah. Thank you very much. Catherine, over to you.
Yeah, sure. I'm going to ask Danny this, and then I'm going to come to Mitchell as well. So in terms of students connecting with employers through LinkedIn, how do they go about reaching out to employers, and what would your advice be from your point of view, Danny?
I suppose in terms of LinkedIn on this event specifically, you know all of our names. It's definitely worth, if you haven't got a LinkedIn profile, there's some great content out there, and I think Barclays Life Skills have got some good stuff on their site as well. Sorry, Joe, but I think for me it's just being confident to reach out. Pop a message in when you link in. Don't send a random request to somebody without any kind of note or message out there. But yeah, I think being confident is really key on social media particularly. And if you're not sure what network to start with, add people that you know, and that's how ultimately LinkedIn works. Add people that you know, and your network can build from there in terms of second and third and fourth tiers. There's lots of really great groups as well, and group networks on LinkedIn, particularly in this space around apprenticeships and early careers that you're absolutely kind of welcomed into as such. You don't have to be a recruiter to join them, and that's obviously a great hunting ground to find the right people in every employer to speak to for certain.
That's great, thanks, Danny. And Mitchell, I wanted to ask you, because I know you applied for 20 apprenticeships, which is great, and I wonder, did you connect with any of the apprentices for some of the companies you applied for, perhaps?
I actually didn't. No, I didn't even have LinkedIn when I was looking for apprenticeships. But having hindsight, I would have definitely done so. Certain people have messaged me. They've seen that I work for UBS and that I'm on the apprenticeship scheme, and they've taken the opportunity to message me and ask me a few questions about the application process, what my job entails. And had I known that, I would have definitely done that. That might have saved me from applying for 20 apprenticeships, but yeah, definitely I would get a LinkedIn account. As I said, we've all got our names here, so you can easily connect with us. And I'm more than happy to answer any questions that anyone might have as well.
Catherine, can I probably just add to that as well? I feel that you could be super smart on LinkedIn, and I think it's good to ask about application processes, but you can get that information from a website. And I think if I was saying how to be really tactical on LinkedIn, it would be to take the time to find out more about the company culture or the job roles itself. So lots of people reach out to me and ask about application processes, and I try and get through as many as I can. But actually, if you think I would really like to learn about wealth management or investment banking, and going to someone in that business area and asking for their opinion on something or their view of what they do, that's probably going to just give you that slight edge. And we always talk about having that edge in your application process, and I think that's probably the way I would approach LinkedIn if I was going to be a student hunting for roles.
That's great, thanks, Hannah.
Thanks, Hannah. I want to ask our HR experts if they're familiar with the IBCP, which is of course the baccalaureate for employability skills. Joe's nodding, good. Basically, Helena is saying that what can they do to promote it more with other employers, really. So, are you familiar with it? They do it instead of A levels. Have you got any comments on the IBCP and any tips for teachers in terms of really promoting it within their schools and with employers?
I would hope that most employers would know of them, because we do say, yeah, A levels, A to B or whatever it may be, but we always put equivalent. So whatever somebody's applying for, we always just double check that it is equivalent. So yeah, absolutely welcome for us. I guess it's just reaching out to different employers and maybe, Pathways and us as panelists on the call can perhaps spread the word a little bit, maybe do a LinkedIn post. So that awareness is there for other employers as well. But yeah, and BTECs get forgotten as well. Good old BTECs, practical, technical qualifications, they're accepted by us as well as equivalent to A levels. But yeah, maybe Chris, we can take it offline and do a post on LinkedIn or something.
Yeah, sounds good. Danny and Karen, anything to add from the ISC group potentially?
We're the same, and we've got a whole manual of equivalent to A levels. So we accept all qualifications, but we would have to just convert them to make sure they're sort of the equivalent of the criteria that we have. But that certainly shouldn't stop you. I mean, I personally did the International Baccalaureate, and I struggled even just to get my grades recognised at university. So I understand some of the pain some students feel. So I suppose I've got two hats on, but it's no problem for our side.
No, thank you. Catherine, we're running out of time, so we'll have to be selective now.
Yes, I'm just trying to sift through the questions. I'll come to Russell with this one, with your university experience. If you go to university, would you say that there's still a point, in perhaps doing an apprenticeship if that's where your thought goes to in that change, if needed?
It might. I mean, it's been really interesting hearing all these. Mine was. I was kind of fearful of graduate schemes, having come out of I had the same dilemma when I finished my master's degree and when I finished my PhD. I just wasn't sure how the graduate schemes worked. And to me, I think somebody mentioned it earlier for the co-op one, for the apprenticeship, it was made clear that it was tremendously accepting of people of all different routes. So I did feel like I was a bit of an unusual candidate, but in terms of a career switch into the law and these alternative pathways through, they had no qualms with the fact that I had zero experience in the law at all, and that it was a restart for me. So it was. I mean, I only applied for one. I did put my eggs all in one basket because when I found it, it seemed like, this is what I've been looking for. I need to get my foot in the door at a company. And I need to, as everyone on the panel has just been talking about, I just need that experience of knowing that company rather than just coming in with a theoretical knowledge. But I don't know if I would change what I did. Everybody's path's individual, right? And I didn't have my head screwed on enough to even, I don't know that they existed back in the same form they do now. But the value for me has been amazing because I've been able to transition into a career that I can see a future in, which I just didn't have before.
No, brilliant, Russell. And you're the shining light to say that, it's not all about, I think it's really important that we don't stress out about you have to know at 16, you have to know at 18, because Russell's, we're all doing it, aren't we? We're all figuring out our way each year that we grow older, and dare I say it. But what we've heard here from employers is they're open. It's not all about your grades, so to speak. It's not all about you have to study these subjects. There's so much more to it. So if we can just keep, as teachers, potentially keep going with the grades, and you've got to be doing really well here, but also open up the other side of it and treat that as equal in terms of what we're looking at and where do you want to go. And like Hannah's saying, we're in education to learn and grow, but to try and get a career that we're going to love. So if we can try and mix that by getting some work experience, i.e. an apprenticeship along the way, then surely that makes sense for some type of learners. I think that's my takeaways. Tony, any comments from you before we just round off and close?
Well, really, I think all I'd like to say is it's been a fantastic evening, really, to listen to the experience of employers and apprentices and to just to understand a little bit more about how this works, because it's just not well understood. I've learned an awful lot from this evening. I'm really grateful to you all for playing a role tonight, because it's your experience is really important to share with our schools. And I'm really excited that this is just the start of a deepening relationship between Pathway and our schools, and that you will have the opportunity, all of our schools will have the opportunity to work through the year with several, well, we say face-to-face opportunities, but at the moment this is what face-to-face looks like, unfortunately. But that you will be able to work with our young people to better prepare them for this as an option. And as we've said this evening, it's not going to be an option for everybody, but for many it will be. And I think it's been a great opportunity to just to raise the profile of this route. So thank you all very much for your contributions.
Brilliant. And we must let people go, but Kathleen, really quickly, let's just round off, please.
Yeah.
Slide.
Yeah, I've put a link in there with details of our events that we have coming up, kicking off with our Accenture application clinic tomorrow evening. So that is a list. If you want to take a photo, of course, click on the link to view all the rest of the events that we have coming up over January. And I've shared our link for, if you are a parent, guardian, please do subscribe via our website so you can be kept up to date with upcoming events. And of course, teachers and governors, any questions, please do email us at schools.team@Pathway CTM. But thank you very much, everyone, for joining. Chris, over to you.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I thought you were going to end on that, Kathleen, because you've done the hard work. So well done. I just want to thank all the employers, Deloitte, HSBC, the Co-op and UBS, for being on until 7:30 and delaying your dinners, and for everyone who's been involved, parents, teachers, governors, and most importantly, students who managed to get involved, and just shows how proactive they are, Tony. So I think your legacy lives on, and thanks very much for all the work you've done for the students over your time there. So thank you, everyone.